So today we have invited three very prominent guests straight from the agencies. And without further ado, I'll welcome Mr. Fazli from MDEC, Mr. Farid from MDV, and also from Markef, Mr. Amit. Okay, perhaps just for the benefit of our visitor today, I would go around and have three questions for you all. First, a bit introduction of your name. Which agency are you from? And what is the role of your agency? Just a brief one, yeah? Perhaps. Start.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Fazli Hisham. You can call me Hisham. I'm from MDEC, Malaysia Digital Economy Corporation. We are the government agency under the newly formed Ministry of Digital. We used to be under Ministry of Communication and Digital, but with the recent cabinet reshuffle end of last year, so we are in the new ministry called Ministry of Digital under YB Gobin. I'm sure you are quite familiar with MDEC. We have been around more than 25 years. But even though it's a new ministry, but our role and mandate are still the same, which is to drive the digital economy of Malaysia by, I think, to sum up in three things, by attracting foreign digital investment to Malaysia, growing the local tech companies as well as the ecosystem, as well as driving digital adoption amongst government, businesses, as well as citizens. So my role basically under the funding facilitation team, which is under the underlying, which is the enablers. So we're looking at helping companies to raise fund via connecting them to investors, VCs, and other type of funding avenues. At the same time, we also provide some, not a lot, but a bit of technology grants as well as incentive to help companies to grow their business. So I'll stop at that. Thank you.
Thank you. So now over to Mr. Farid.
Hello, hi everyone, and thank you Nespace for inviting myself to represent MDV for this special event. My name is Farid. Basically, I'm from Malaysia That Venture. We are government agency under MOSTI, Ministry of Science and Technology. We have been around for quite some time, since 2020, right? So this is our 24th year or 24th anniversary this year. The purpose of our incorporation is basically to facilitate in terms of financing, especially in the technology sectors. I think we all started in the early 20s, year 2000, right? Basically, at that time, MSC was first started, and our role is to help government in terms of financing infrastructure project, especially in the ICT, fiberization, then telecommunication. Then, of course, we grown into green tech to finance, solar energy installations, green energies. And, in 2018, we started this program called Venture Debt, specifically to cater financing needs, especially for the startup and early stage companies. So I think we will talk a little bit more later on. I think the host of questions, on these venture debt programs. So, and hopefully after this, we can gather and we can mingle around. And if you have any other questions, we can always address that accordingly.
Thank you.
Hi, afternoon everyone. Hi, my name is Amit and I represent MAFCAP. So MAFCAP as well has been around for a long time. So we started in 2001. In the first 10 years of our lives, we were predominantly investing in startups directly. As of 2012, 2011, we actually changed the model to a fund-on-fund models. So essentially what that means is we now invest in VCs who then invest in local startups or overseas. So as our initial roles as well, we were created to create the VC ecosystem in Malaysia to help develop that ecosystem to be more thriving. And that's what our role was. And we do have a developmental angle as well. So on my side of things, we do direct investments. we're actually helping to clear out some of the legacy investments that we have, and helping with the fund on fund side. So that's MAFCAP on a general basis.
Okay, thank you very much. I think now we have a brief idea of what are your roles and how can you play in, especially in helping the Malaysia that recently they announced the 5 domestic USD 1 billion unicorn. Okay, so just want to ask among three of you, is there any industry in particular that you guys are looking at this stage for the next 3 to 5 years?
So I'll take this, the first one. So as part of the KL20 initiative, they've identified a few sectors. So one of it is energy and green tech, manufacturing and automation. So specifically, one of the areas that we are looking for the next 3 to 5 years is the E&E space, which is electronic space, which is basically semiconductor. Outside of KL, Penang is actually one of the biggest semiconductor supply chain in the world, about 7%. So that's an area that everybody is trying to focus on now. So you see people like Intel, Nvidia, everybody wants to start investing in Penang, in Kedah, in Perak to set up plants and things like that. So that's a big area that people are looking at, as well as your e-commerce and those type. Fintech is still still there, but these are the big things that are coming up: energy, green tech, semiconductors. Yeah.
Right. I think for MDV as a whole, the green energy or sustainable energy is one of the key areas that we are focusing, especially for our other products. I mean, like the contract and project financing. We do actually expecting large chunk of our financing will basically to be focused on these sectors. But on the early stage and startup space, we don't have any specific preference in terms of sectors, because our role is basically to help everybody, to help as much companies or early stage companies, to open up an alternative financing or funding kind of like options for most of the companies, right? So we don't have any specific, but we do like fintech, right? We do like e-commerce, marketplace type of businesses. Anything that related to the masses especially, right? The consumer side. So these are the area which we like to see, or probably we like to see more, going forward. Yeah.
Okay. So from MDEC side, basically we are based on the Malaysia Digital initiatives. We have identified 9, I would say, key promoter sectors. Again, just to give you context, Malaysia Digital is the rebrand of MSC Malaysia, if you are familiar with that status. So it was rebranded, I think, 2 years ago as Malaysia Digital. It's a refresh. And so with that, there's I would say like a new, I would say, set of not a new, but it's an upgrade or improvement of the previous program. For example, it used to be MSc. You have to be like to be at certain areas or specific offices and so on. But now, for companies that would like to have just a brand or acknowledgement or recognizable certification or acknowledgement, then or endorsed by the government, you can go for the MD status. So basically, from that we goes back to the MD. So we identify 9 promoted sectors, which is consists of I think similar to what MD Farid mentioned. So digital finance, digital health, digital agriculture, digital trade, digital services. What else? So all the way to Islamic digital economy. So there's 9 of them, and this is supported by 10 tech enablers, AI, blockchain, cloud, data centers, and so on. So also the promoted sectors, as I now recall, so there's also E&E as well, semiconductor, as well as the digital content. So these are the 9 sectors that we feel that are growing in terms of the ecosystem, the readiness of the in terms of the adoption, the supply and demand, and also validated by the global trends as well, and also in terms of companies that are being invested. I mean, especially in Malaysia, these are the areas that I think probably Amit can also validate companies like in the fintech, healthcare, as well as e-commerce. So these are like 3 sectors that I think quite active at the moment. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for sharing on the industry. So I think nowadays, today, our visitor, they also would love to know the first step on how. So because I think nowadays a lot of information overloaded, we do know what we know. So today we invited you directly from the agency. We want to know, is that 1 or 2 initiative or program that you can share with the visitor and they can immediately take action today if they are looking for fundraising?
Okay, I'll go first. Of course, on the overall government perspective, there's a lot of initiative and program. Probably I just mentioned from MDEC itself. As I mentioned in my introduction, so we from our team, we do actually facilitate in terms of helping companies to raise fund either to VCs, PEs, even alternative funding such as venture debt, ECF, M2P. So where we actually try to push companies to our relevant partners as well. So through so this facilitation, for example, for the VC side, we have a program called VC Investor Matching Program, where we actually started during the heights of COVID MCO. During that time, we have partnered up with I would say KK Fund as well as Beam. I think I saw Ken at that time. So during that time, we have onboarded I think close to 100 VCs around not just Malaysia but also regionally as well, to help companies to raise fund and be connected to all these our VC partners. So from there on, we continue until now. So now we have about 70 plus active VCs in our network, and where we actually still help to curate the deal flows to them based on the company's funding stage, because most of our partners are looking at from seed all the way to growth stage as well. So these are the one thing that we immediately can do. So we can just reach out to us. We can help to also identify the right VC or investor that probably suitable for you to at least have that first conversation. Then of course, probably we can have further follow up with them and see how then we can hopefully can secure any type of funding available. So these are some of the but in terms of direct I would say funding assistance, we do, as I mentioned, we also have a technology grant that we make available. So there are actually, I would say in MDEC we have 3 main grants. So one called Malaysia Digital Export Grant. So this more catered to companies who like to expand into overseas market. So they want to customize, localize their product and then sell to, either the current their existing market or their new market that they are looking at. So we support in terms of some of the eligible expenditure or expand your business over there as well. For this, we also work closely with Matrade side, because Matrade also do provide what we call I think the what they call this their grant, their development grant, so to cover some of your travel expenses or to cover your conferences, event that you attend overseas. Secondly, we have what we call Catalyst grant. So this one is more on companies would like to co-create, problem solve, as well as develop, commercialize their product solution together with end user partner. So for example, you have already like a potential client, then your product and solution can actually digitize some of their business operation. For example, at the end can further improve their productivity or add in new revenue stream and so on. So it's something that you can leverage on. So both of these two grants, the Catalyst as well as this program, the quantum is up to 1 million. Again, it's a matching grant. So just to clarify, means that, for example, if your project cost of the particular proposed project is say 2 million, so we can match up to 1 million. If it's 1 million, for example, so we match 500,000. And last but not least is the digital content grant, but this one more specific to digital content companies, those that like develop games, animation, and so on. So yeah, so that's I can share more. I can go a bit longer, but it's okay. Give opportunity to others as well to share.
We don't mind actually. You continue. Okay. For Malaysia Debt Venture, what we offer is basically debt financing, right? So when we talk about debt financing, it is no different from any type of business loans that that other FIs, the commercial FIs, offers, right? But there is a slight difference in terms of our terms because our focus segment is early stage and startup, right? So this can be considered high risk, space, especially for FIs to lend money. So one of the key features of our facility, our debt, is we have what we call this warrant, right? So there is actually a warrant attached to the facility. How does it work? Is basically it is an option given by the company to MDV to purchase shares of the company. All right. So the price will be decided, now, or at least when you sign the LO, basically that price per share that we have the right to acquire will be decided earlier. And then, the tenure of us, to exercise, right? Because it cannot be open-ended, right? So there is actually a limitation of time that we can exercise. So we can exercise, within the facility tenure. Our facility tenure, it can be within 3 to 5 years, plus additional 2 years. Say, for example, facility tenure is 5 years, meaning we have the right to exercise within 7 years, right? So if we don't exercise, then it lapses, nothing happened, right? If we exercise, we will pay you the money. Say, for example, we have the right to exercise to acquire 1,000 shares at 10 ringgit, right? So we will pay you 10,000 ringgit, and in return, you will give us a share when we want to exercise. The question is, typically when MDV will exercise, if there is need to exercise, is, it is, okay, the reason why we have this warrant is obviously, to compensate the risk that we take investing or, lending to high risk, companies. And usually we will exercise this towards the end of the tenure, the facility tenure itself. Because I think if we look at, the startup kind of like, life cycle, I think it will take between that 7 to maybe 15 years before any liquidity event happen, right? Or any exit event happen, either IPO or trade sale or M&A, right? Because, the first 5 years is basically you to build the revenue, to build the profitability. And of course, the next 5 years is hopefully, the profitability is there. Then you can talk about any corporate exercise like IPO or M&A or any trade sale, right? So those are the time where, we probably will exercise. Before that, unlikely we will exercise. And I think from our experience, when we decide or when we discuss on the valuation, right, ultimately when we exercise, because I think for most founders, right, what is your concerns, right? Especially for debt provider or anybody that come in having this equity kind of like element, it's all about dilution, right? So you do not want to be diluted because, probably that is not the only one funding source. You're probably gonna go and see VCs prior to that, and the amount of money that you raise is substantial, and it reflects to the dilution as well, right? So sometimes dilution can be significant. So you do not want to be diluted significantly. But I think we have 60 over companies under our portfolio now. I think more than I would say more than around 10 that we have actually gone through this exercise, and I would say majority of them, when we exercise, the equity that basically given to us is probably less than 2%, very marginal, right? Because the facility that they take from us, say for example 1 million, we don't usually we structure is a percentage of the facility. Say for example 20% of the facility, right? So 20% is only 200,000. So if let's say your valuation is 10 million, so 200,000 divided by 10 million, I think it's less than 2%. So I think most of those people or those companies that have taken facility from us, I mean, they're quite happy with those arrangements, as long as they got this additional lifeline to basically continue and progress their business. So that is probably the unique features of our facility compared to the normal business loan that you get from commercial banks. Other thing is of course the eligibility, right? So when we talk about loan, right, I think most of the time, I think especially when we approach or we've been we're talking to startup, right? Because startup, as we all know, startup very early stage companies, there are certain milestone or revenues that or activities that you need to do basically to actually bring more businesses and all that, right? So you need that capital, and at most of the time, sometimes what happens is you have not met that eligibility criteria, as imposed by us. So it is quite frustrating for startup. Although I can borrow money from MDB, but when you come to MDB, there is alamak, there's so many conditions that MDB put in place. But I think when you look at the market, in Malaysia, when you look at the provider of venture debt, right? I think we first started that program in Malaysia in 2018. I think in 2020, when Penjana Capital started, I mean, with the 600 million fund, and then they start to give away to a lot of VCs, provided that you bring in matching from overseas fund. So there's two additional companies, Iris and also Crewstone. They are also been actually allocated some funding by Penjana to offer this venture debt program. So now there are 3 players in the market. I think looking at the size of our market, it should be more than enough player or facilities that are available for everyone. I think depending on the stage of where you are and about your business and also company, basically you should be able to enjoy that facilities lah.
Yeah, thanks for that. For us, I think the first question we need to probably understand is where you are currently in your startup journey, right? So if you're at ideation, pre-seed kind of stage, the obvious place to go to is normally you go to Cradle to get a grant, right? That's the starting point. Then the moment you get a little bit of traction and things like that, there's a proof of concept, there's some revenue, some customers. That's when I think people like our agencies like MathCap and comes into the picture. So they often approach us, and as I mentioned, we don't do direct investments anymore. So what we then do is facilitate between our partner VCs. So the likes of your 500s, your Gobis, your Vin Capital. We even sometimes have reference, we go to like Hive, which does like pre-seed, seed kind of deals. So because we are in touch with everybody, so we then connect everybody together to the startup to see, hey, this startup looks interesting, they're doing this, you want to have a look. And then the startups and the VCs then take it from there. That's the way we actually work. So that's how we facilitate the startup side of things. Now, from a KPI standpoint, like for example, we are also under MOSTI. So one of our goals as a developmental angle is to back more fund managers to actually invest locally, right? So for example, there'll be like KPIs with mostly like, how many local startups did the funds that you backed actually backed, right? So for example, 1 year you're supposed to do 10 local startups. So, the funds that invest as a developmental angle saying whatever capital we put as a multiplier effect that goes back into the country, right? So that's the way we actually work. And that's how startups in Malaysia get funded through us. So for example, we have 5 funds that backed Kasem through 5 different funds, Aerodyne, the Lorry. So this is how we actually contribute towards the startup building in Malaysia. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So I'm very sure you all have already heard all the products. Later after this, you can stay back and look for them. Okay. I think when Mr. Farid talked about venture debt, I think some of you have opened the eyes because it's relatively new space. So don't mind me asking a little bit about venture debts. So start with, because startup is always have a very high risk. So the chances of them not able to pay back is also there. And I'm very sure you have encountered some of the startup in this scenario. So how do you approach this kind of scenario for MDV?
Okay, since we only started back in 2018, right? So I think that journey has not really been that long, right? So we're still in the learning stage. Of course, when you talk about lending to early stage company and startup, it is a high risk kind of like ventures, similar to equity as well. I think the VCs are taking quite a high risk position when they invest in startup. But how do we sort of like get comfort in lending to those selected startup, right? So number one, that's why I said the pre-criteria, right, for those companies that are eligible to get financing under venture debt. Of course, you have to actually at the revenue stage, revenue generating stage, right? So your cash flow has to be, your net cash flow has to be positive. You have to demonstrate that net positive cash flows. Profitability is out of the question. We don't look into your P&L, right? But we look at your cash flows. If you can demonstrate that you are net positive cash flows, right? Then, I think, that number one hurdle is over. So basically you are basically kind of eligible. But of course, there are other criteria. Of course, that in terms of, your paid up capital, those are basically the soft criteria. Like usually, I think what happened is, if let's say sometimes startup, what happened was, their paid up capital is very, very marginal, very minimal, right? They started off with 1,000 and they never actually increased that paid up capital, right? Everything is loaded up under, advances and whatever not. So what happened was, we have that minimum 100,000 paid up capital. Number 3 is it has to be a company incorporated in Malaysia. Since we are a government agency, so we have to basically do that. But we do actually lend to foreign entity in by way of them having locally incorporated subsidiaries, right? So they have say for example, I give you an example like Funding Society, right? It is actually incorporated in Singapore, but they have Funding Society in Malaysia, right? So we actually lend money to them. Okay, so and I think the other one, which is I would say it is not compulsory, but we prefer startup that actually has gone through some equity fundraising rounds, especially with VCs, right? Okay, your question is probably why, right? Simple, because when we talk about startup, early stage technology tech companies, right? You have technology that basically the underlying important aspect of your business is the technology itself, right? As a lender, unlike the equity investor, lender, we don't do that due diligence, that technology, tech due that financial due and whatever not, right? So we don't actually do that exercise. So what we take comfort is if you have a VC in your cap table, then it is actually a testimonial to the company that your business plan has been verified, your technology has been verified, the people, the financial has been verified at least, right? So we take comfort on that. So but again, like I said, it is not mandatory. But we prefer, I think now about 70-80% of our portfolio they are actually a VC-backed companies, right? So I think that's basically how we mitigate. Of course, in terms of default or non-performing loans, right? Yes, there is. I think if I say no, then I would be lying, right? So how we deal with that is usually those scenario. I think with any other banks they will do the same. They do rehabilitation. We sit down with the with the founders. Okay, we find a way how we can actually help you to extend, say for example the tenure, reduce the payment, and we do all sort of things to rehabilitate the portfolio companies. But again, worst case scenario, after all thing has been done, still that facility remain unpaid, then of course we don't have any other choice to go legal. I think similar with other banks as well. Yeah.
Yep, I think that's a fair point. Okay, so I think again our visitor here mostly are startup. So I think a lot of times what they are facing is I talk to VC and there's always a gap between VCs and also startup. So today you want to give some advice to some of these startup. What are the things internally they can do so that they can improve the chances of the grant or incentive or for your site for the venture debt? Yeah. Perhaps can start with you.
Okay, so for grants, I think we have again, I think quite similar to, and we have a set of criteria requirement that you have to fulfill before you can actually apply. Of course, we also look at the financial performance, probably not as strict as Farid's side. Just because our grants is, as I mentioned just now, is a matching grant as well as on claim basis. So what we want to do is that we want to make sure that a company or the applicant can actually actually deploy or implement the particular project that they have proposed. Again, we do give what we call mobilization fee, which is the upfront, which is about 10% of your approved grant amount, just for you to kickstart the particular project. And then of course the other things you have to spend first, for example like salaries, your hardware costing and so on. So there are a set of eligible expenditure that allowable that for you to claim as well. Also we also look at the when it comes to financial just now, so we look at the again same your cash flow, your financial performance, and then the current ratio and so on. Again for that same purpose, so that we understand that you are stable enough. And in terms of the incorporation year, we also want to see that actually at least you have been incorporated for at least 1 year. So then we know that you have been running your business quite stable, and then you have everything is in place. Of course, as Amit mentioned, if you are still in, I would say, ideation or pre-seed, then of course there's other agencies available, for example like Cradle or Guarantee, that actually can support in terms of the grants. And then the other things that probably can tip the balance of getting approval, probably to look into the scope or objective of the grant itself. So for example, like as I mentioned, we have like let's say the export as well as the catalyst grant. So if you are really looking into expanding your business or your product solution to overseas market, how you prove that, how you probably in terms of some of the partnership that you have done with that particular market, any type of LOI, for example, any type of MOU. So that's make a stronger case for us to then fund your project or your product. And then of course do look into the outcome of the or a KPI of the particular grant. So for example, like for the catalyst grant, we want to make sure that at the end of the day you do we want to see the IP creation to make sure that the product and solution. Then of course then you file that particular. Tapi that doesn't matter is for your coding, for example, or your product itself. So these are some of the areas that probably can help you to or probably just take into note in terms of when applying for at least from our side. But probably just to share as well in terms of the chances of getting a grant, probably just to give some numbers. For example, like last year, we have about close to 300 plus companies that apply for the two grant that I mentioned. But I think we have actually approved slightly over 40 companies. So that's about more than 10%, 15% of success rate. Yeah, a bit tough because we, apart from our own due diligence and pre-assessment, we also rely on what we call GRC, which is the Grant Recommendation Committee. These are consist of external parties. They are industry experts. Sometimes we call him VC as well. So Param is one of our our panel as well. Look into evaluation for the companies, looking at the commercial value, how feasible it is, how viable it is, and how scalable it is as well. So yeah. So I think in terms of process, we do have a bit of quite I would say like a strict process. But then of course, if you have a very good product and very potential and very have a very outcome driven, then definitely we can support. Yeah.
For Mr. Amit.
Yeah. Hi. So I think for me, it's for what startups can do essentially is, I think you'd be very clear on your business model, right? What are you trying to do? What's the problem that you're trying to solve? This needs to be very clear, because if you yourself are not sure of the sector or area that you're playing at, it becomes very difficult to convey the messages to potential investors. I think financial performance is looked at, but it's not the end all and be all. Like I said, I think you need to be very clear on what you're trying to do and what you're trying to achieve, and then the market size and and the use of funds, right? So, for example, if you're raising funds to pay off a debt, then a lot of people are going to say no, right? So, if you're looking to grow, which now has actually changed in the startup. So, investors don't want to give you capital to grow and burn cash, right? It has to be sustainable, because this way of thinking has now changed. Path to profitability is actually something that's looked at highly now, because capital is not cheap anymore, right? So you're no longer in the zero interest rate where things are cheap, where money is freely available. You can see across the board where valuations have come down. So for example, like you look at Grab, for example, when they IPO'd, and now it's like 60-70% down. So it's becoming to a realization that, valuations are important, but it's not the end all be all. As long as you can sustainably run your business without burning too much cash, I think that's something that you need to consider. So maintaining a tight book, actually thinking how you approach your customers, your advertising, instead of using Facebook ads and Google ads have gone very expensive now. So, alternative. So for example, people use TikTok now, which is a big way to actually market their products, right? So things like that, being creative. And I think that's the way, that's the best way for you to approach VCs to grow and get investments. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So we come to our last question before we open for the Q&A. Okay, so I think raising fund is always the first step of it. After that, like what Mr. Amit says, is about sustaining. So just want to ask, from this side of the world, like when you all disperse the fund, is that a way you all, like how can you monitor the proper utilization of fund? Like what kind of things that you all will continue to look for so that our visitor and our startup also will prepare themselves? I think it works both ways, right?
I think this for us is very simple. The way we do it is like I said, the VCs that we back would tentatively report to us, look, we have backed these Malaysian founders or something. But our definition of Malaysia is also widened, right? We don't just say, oh, you have to be Sendirian Berhad, this one. It can be a Malaysian founder overseas, considered Malaysian. Malaysian foreign entity, foreign person has business in Malaysia, is also Malaysian. Or an entity whose substantial revenue comes from Malaysia is also considered Malaysian. We cannot be so narrow-minded because it doesn't work. So we have broadened the definition of Malaysia. And so like we say, we track this. So mostly the Ministry of Science and Technology actually asks how many startups have been backed because the grant and the money comes from them. So that's how we keep track.
Okay, for us, I think we learned through experience. When we disburse the facility, right? Say, for example, 2 million has been approved to a company. So we do have, the purpose of utilization, where most of the companies that came to us, the purpose are basically for working capital purposes, which include to pay salary, to pay your administrative expenses, marketing, and whatever not. So for MDV, when we disburse the facility, we usually do tranche, do several tranche for the facility. We don't give you lump sum amount. Say, for example, we don't give you the whole 2 million from day one, right? So we will tranche it out. Say, for example, minimum 2 tranches. With the second tranche, basically will have a certain milestone. If you achieve those milestones, then we release the second tranche. Right? So these are basically controls that we put in place. Other controls are basically, it is on a drawdown or it is on a request basis, the drawdown, right? Say, for example, the first tranche will allow you to actually use up to 1 million, for your working capital purposes. So what happened is every month you need to actually send us a drawdown notice. Say, for example, you want to pay salary 100,000, right? So you send us, the salary, summary. Okay, these are salary that gonna cost my company 100,000 for this month. Can you release the money? So we will release you the money accordingly. Say, for example, you want to pay your vendor, right? So certain item that you buy to complete your product, then you want to pay to the vendor. So you give the vendor's invoice to us, then we will release money to the vendor. We're not going to release money to you. We will pay the vendor direct. So these are the things that we basically control because sometimes money is it's nice to have money, right? So most people, yes, initially the plan is to do A, but the moment money in the hands, it can be pivoted for something else, right? So not to say that our way of doing things can resolve everything, but at least it imposes certain controls, right? At least minimum control that we do. But at the end of the day, if let's say the borrower find a way how to actually play around with the money, then so be it. At the end of the day, we know that there's some certain securities, there's certain guarantees by the borrower. If you want to play around, you can't pay, you get into default situation, we definitely gonna chase you, right? So I think at the end of the day, we just wanna. I think for us, the role we are playing is to support and to help you guys to grow your business. If you use the money, it should be used for that purpose, right? Don't use it for something else because at that early stage, you do not want to get into trouble. You do not want to get into legal situation, right? Because your journey is still very long, right? So if you think that, getting into legal situation would help you, no, it won't, right? Your secrets, your CTOS is just gonna appear bad and nobody gonna lend you money or nobody gonna invest in your company. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So, so from our side, I think how we actually manage in terms of our disbursement. Of course, the one that I mentioned, mobilization, just to kick off. But then I think quite similar to what Farid said. So we also have, I would say like milestone or deliverables that you have to meet. So for example, like the grant that I mentioned is normally it's up to 12 months. So normally we break it into on quarterly basis. So every 3 months you have to deliver a certain milestone, and from there then we then disperse as per what you have claimed throughout that particular 3 months. So Yeah, it's quite. I mean, we do receive feedback, because saying it's a bit tidy. I mean, quite. I would say hassle in terms of preparing all the competition and so on. But this control that we have set into, because I think because we've been providing a lot of grants throughout all. I mean, since the beginning. So of course, things have been abused before. So it's unfortunate that we have to put certain control in place to make sure that everything is spent wisely, because at the end of the day, this is the rakyat's money. So we have to make sure that it's been used properly as well. In terms of the post monitoring, I mean, after completion, of course, we want to know that, of course, once everything completed, we do provide certain support to you guys in terms of whatever reason. I mean, for market expansion, for example, for fundraise. I mean, we do help companies to, again, after getting your grant, then you like to raise funds through VCs, for example, then we help to facilitate that. So a lot of other to ensure that you still the company keep growing even after you receive our grant. Just to give example, some of our recipient, I think like from last year, I think Soft is one of our grant recipients as well. Last year they raised, I think I think in Malaysia probably the highest round, about 31 million USD. I think Kasem is one of the beneficiaries of our grant as well. Even Grab, those days during my taxi days, they also received, I think, about 100,000 of our seed funding. But of course, probably fault of our own. Probably we didn't do enough to ensure that they stay. So a lot of things that have been put in place to make sure that companies still grow and expand in Malaysia, so that we can at least claim our own. so yeah. So that's from our end. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I think we comes to end of session. Thank you very much. So again, to our visitor here. Don't prepare an umbrella when it's don't prepare when there's rain lah. So prepare in advance, okay? So same goes for all this funding, fundraising, or even all these are a journey. So I think while we approach them for all this fundraising, I think for businesses we also start preparing all the financial, all the commercial plan, all the business plan, because you don't know when you're going to use it. Okay. So with that, thank you very much for our panelists, especially during the Puasa month. Thank you.